What? Okay, friends, our mission is to own the libs, the classical libs, aka we gotta destroy Sargon at all costs. He denied the gender wage gap. That means all-out war. If that means we have to side with the communist government of China, then so be it. Now, will we need to smear millions of Chinese refugees in the process to pwn Sargon? Yeah. It may be 6 years later, but the SJWs can still win Gamergate, friends.
Absolutely right about the sort of insider clubs. The media is the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, the
media is, like we've been saying for the last 10, 20 years, the media is dying slowly.
Yeah.
You know, no one
but they're
TV.
an insider club and they don't like the fact that those outside are gaining any influence.
Yes.
I mean, Epoch Times got demonetized on YouTube the other day. So what? They're just like a Christian conservative website. They're not like spewing Nazi rhetoric or something. So let me try and understand this in a very basic way because I'm a complete idiot.
Oh, self-pwn, Sargon! You dumb idiot! Before we meat and potatoes this, I got a question, Kristi. Look, I'm no Sargon, I don't pull in numbers like his. I started this channel after political content got nuked on YouTube. Right now, I'm kind of a refugee on Gab as well. I could probably get some more attention if I moved more towards the center, but I really just don't care. You, though, you've been doing this forever. You got more than 3 times the subscribers that I have. You've done way more videos than me. So my question is, why does this have only around 400 views? I get more views on Gab TV. They've been hosting videos for what, like a month now? Why did 7,000 of your 7.5 thousand subscribers not even bother to watch your video? My guess is they're tired of this. They're tired of your content that would have made sense in 2014. In the current year though, it's just cringe.
So the Epoch Times is a conservative news outlet. They have newspapers and they have a website. And what you'll see is very pro-Trump conservative, ultra-conservative content.
So you might be wondering, where is Kristi Winters? She did a 1 hour, 42-minute live stream on this. I'm unwilling to watch, much less respond to a nearly 2-hour Kristi Winters video. I did skim it though. Only a small portion of that video talks about the subject of this response, which is going to be Falun Gong. For the beginning of the stream, Kristi just reads anti-Trump media articles. If I wanted to watch videos of people just shitting on Trump, I'd watch CNN. Her Epoch Times content is just responding to this 10-minute video which she watches on live stream. This video is supposed to be her receipts, the proof that validates the opinion she expresses on the stream. If you watch the long stream, she says, oh look, this is a cult, here's the receipt, and then she just plays portions of the video. Having skimmed the stream though, I can tell you she didn't really present any other evidence. There's no other receipts than this, so I might as well just respond to the substantive content. Oh, and in her stream after the Epoch Times stuff, she tries to debunk some article about socialism on Sargon's website. Who cares about that?
It's come up in 2016 as a real player in the conservative ecosystem. Before then, it was really known as just a Chinese language newspaper that was associated with Falun Gong. And Falun Gong, it's a movement, it's a religious, spiritual movement that's headed by a man named Master Li Hongzhu. Master Li lives in Dragon Springs, New York. He lives upstate and he is the head of this religion.
You're omitting quite a lot there. Li Hongzhi was not some guy who just lives in upstate New York. He originally lived in China. After studying Taoism and Buddhism, he created the Falun Gong spiritual movement. At its core, Falun Gong is a conservative movement. It teaches virtue ethics and advocates for rebuilding the traditional Chinese culture. You know, the culture that was destroyed by the communists in the Cultural Revolution. Hongzhi's movement became incredibly popular in the 90s. Over 100 million Chinese joined the movement. Towards the end of the 90s, the CCP saw its popularity as a threat. It had become a competing ideologies. It's sort of how the cathedral in the US views Christianity as a threat, something that needs to be constantly ridiculed and undermined. The difference being that the CCP, at least back then, was way more repressive than the US government. Falun Gong followers were imprisoned for no reason. They were frequently executed, had their organs harvested and sold. Li Hongzhi left China in 1998 and moved to Queens. Fearing Chinese assassins, he later built a compound for himself in upstate New York.
So all the people in this religion have have to volunteer their time at one of the media arms. Now there's the Epoch Times, and that's the newspaper, and then there is NDTV, and that's the television component and the video component, and then there's Shen Yun. And Shen Yun, if you've seen the ubiquitous advertisements everywhere, it's a traditional Chinese dance troupe with a very anti-communist China message.
Wow, that's horrible. Did you see those women dancing? Looks like something a terrorist would do.
So the whole point of all of these things, whether it's the Epoch Times or Shen Yun, is to relay this message that the end of the world is coming.
Is this news or CCP propaganda? Falun Gong is not a Western religion. It doesn't believe in a god or an apocalypse. The religion consists of a series of meditation exercises, that in a process of moral self-improvement that would have things in common with Aristotle's virtue ethics as well as Buddhism. As far as I can tell, Falun Gong places less emphasis on supernatural things than Christianity or Judaism.
If you are aligned with communism, you will go to a sort of hell. And if you are not aligned with communism, if you align yourself with Falun Gong, then you will be spared and you will go to heaven. So it's sort of an apocalyptic sort of cult, not unlike a lot of religions.
Oh, what? Where's the basis of this knowledge coming from? Did Li Hongzhi write a book that said this? If he did, can you tell us about it? I tried to fact check this claim online. I couldn't find any primary sources. In fact, the only sources I could find claiming this were the CCP and NPC News. I'd say both of these sources have serious credibility problems that weren't being remedied with citations of primary sources.
But what makes it interesting is that they're using their money to really back Trump, and they're aligning themselves with evangelicals and conservatives on the internet to really push a pro-Trump message, and it really seems to be working.
Okay, well, I guess it didn't work. Yeah, Trump remains one of the most popular people alive in history on earth. I'm sure the Epoch Times boosted his reputation a little bit, but the election was completely frauded, so none of that mattered. So why all the hate for a small spiritual movement? You act like they committed some type of crime. What, because they have women dance like they used to before the Cultural Revolution in China? And then what happens? The Communist government of China imprisons their members, it kills them, it harvests their organs. Wouldn't it make sense for them to back someone who pledged to be a thorn in the side of the CCP? If a government was literally killing my people, I don't think I personally would want to back the guy who wants to partner with them.
Exclusive reporting from NBC News linking a Chinese spiritual group footing the bill for some of the biggest pro-Trump advertising on Facebook. The Epoch Times has spent more than $1.5 million on 11,000 pro-Trump advertisements in the last 6 months alone. Put that in perspective. That is more than any organization outside the Trump campaign itself, even more than most Democratic presidential candidates have spent on their own campaigns.
So what? The Supreme Court said that super PACs are free speech. $1.5 million is a drop in the bucket compared to what Wall Street donated Joe Biden. This is why people despise journalists. When it comes to corrupt, self-interested political donations, well, that's totally acceptable. But when someone donates money based on sincerely held principles or moral beliefs, the media is outraged. This hits at the core of the cathedral, something this book really did a good job helping me understand. When I have time, I can do a video that gives you some deep lore on the cathedral. Lore that I haven't heard anyone else talk about. To summarize, it was created with anti-fascism as its first principle. The founders of the cathedral believed that anything that people believed in more than material self-interest could lead to fascism. That's why the cathedral constantly attacks and undermines things like nationalism, religion, and family. A good way to trigger the cathedral is to do something against your own material self-interest.
Joining me now, the reporters who broke this extraordinary story, NBC's Ben Collins and Brandy Zarazny.
Wait, isn't this the same old hag from before? What the heck? Is her job just to do 24/7 hit piece journalism on Chinese immigrants?
I'm gonna start with this. What?
Chinese immigrants bought ads on Facebook? How can this happen in America? Someone needs to stop this immediately. Guys, they spent $1.5 million on those ads. That's almost 1/4 of what it would cost for a single Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, it's wild. I know, it's a very wild story, but here's the deal. So there's this group called Falun Gong, and they run this thing called the Epoch Times. If you are based on ad targeting, if you're over 50 on Facebook, you probably got one of these ads. In fact, you may have gotten in the mail. They send out physical mailers talking about the deep state and talking about how Hillary Clinton is part of a cabal sort of taking over the government.
Yeah, Epoch Times has a newspaper. You can get it delivered to you. How frightening is that? A source of news delivered to your home? Also, they said Hillary Clinton was part of the cabal. You know, that elite cabal that Time magazine admitted rigged the election?
They are, I would say, pretty much everywhere. And their end goal of the spiritual group is to bring about a judgment day that will pit communists and communists to hell, and anyone who's sympathetic to them to heaven. And they think that Donald Trump is the guy helping bring that up.
Okay, then show us the receipts. You people won't cover any of the allegation of election fraud stuff. That's despite the fact that they held huge news conferences. We'd have 6 straight hours of receipts getting shown. Yet you guys never covered that. But what you will cover is you will slander these conservative Chinese immigrants with 0 receipts. If Falun Gong is a cult, do your job, improve it. Show me the receipts.
You spoke to former reporters there. What'd they tell you?
Well, so that was really interesting. So usually the people that are working there are just Falun Gong volunteers. So they're people that practice the religion or the spiritual movement, and they also work for the paper. That's part of their spirituality. They have to volunteer their time there. But in 2016, the Epoch Times did a really interesting thing, and they decided to hire from outside. So they brought in 7 new reporters that didn't practice. They put them in a locked room away from the rest of the newspaper staff, and they had them churn out articles. So one of the former reporters said that it was almost like a Russian troll farm. So that's what's happening behind the scenes.
A Russian troll farm? Oh, really? Okay, well, let's go look at Epoch Times right now. There should be some real heinous stuff on there according to MSNBC. Okay, top story is Ron Paul says 0 chance of impeachment. Okay, is this Russian troll farm? Seems like a normal news story to me. The next one is Epoch Times wins best documentary. Yeah, remember when the Russian troll farm won an award at a film festival? Yeah, I don't think so. Mexico requesting migration surge. Well, duh. I've told you the same thing on this channel multiple times. Australian journalist Chang Lei formally arrested in China. Are you telling me that isn't a legitimate news story, that just didn't happen? Epoch Times just made it up because they're an evil cult? Seriously, what's the problem here? It looks to me like Epoch Times is a legit news website. If I were to go to any of the other mainstream media, all the stories would be just Trump derangement syndrome nonsense.
In particular, I am quite worried that the Falun Gong cult is getting in way too deep with the conservative movement of this continent.
Well, Falun Gong is a conservative religious movement. It associates itself with traditional culture. That's why they sponsor these women dancing in traditional outfits. This is just yet another smear, one made by a middle-aged man with Pokemon stuff in his background. Look, dude, you can keep on pretending like they made some cynical choice to hitch onto the conservative bandwagon. What you can't seem to wrap your tiny brain around is the fact that they have sincere principles and religious beliefs that connect them with conservatism.
And these days, I have noticed that whenever criticism is made of any Falun Gong aligned media outlet, particularly the Epoch Times, conservatives will rush to defend it. We saw this when Facebook banned the Epoch Times for deceptive advertising practices in 2019.
Conservatives refuse to celebrate the banning of a newspaper. How dare they? Righteous censorship by big tech companies is above criticism. I can't tell the difference between American journalists at this point and Chinese communist members.
Or when mainstream media outlets like NBC or the CBC in this country publish critical reporting on them.
Yeah, I have an objection to you smearing these people. If you had receipts and could prove they're corrupt or bad people, maybe I'd be sympathetic. But what all of this looks like to me is a bad faith hit piece. By all appearances, everything in this video so far appears to be that. Oh, they don't hate Trump like us. They must be a cult then. We need to censor them offline. Oh yeah, Orange Man bad.
There is a tendency to assume that because Falun Gong aligned media is pro-Trump and anti-China, well, they must be the good guys here and their critics just jealous progressives.
Sounds about right to me. These are the people standing up to genocide and oppression. Meanwhile, you SJWs haven't done anything. You spend all your time and effort fighting systemic injustices that don't even exist. Meanwhile, China's putting millions of people in concentration camps. And then you guys go ahead and vote for the deeply corrupt, demented guy who wants to partner with China.
You're absolutely right about the sort of insider clubs. The media is the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, the
media is, like we've been saying for the last 10, 20 years, the media is dying slowly.
Yeah.
You know, no one
but they're an
TV.
insider club, and they don't like the fact that those outside are gaining any influence.
Yes.
I mean, Epoch Times got demonetized on YouTube the other day. So what? They're just like a Christian conservative website. They're not like spewing Nazi rhetoric or something. So let me try and understand this in a very basic way, because I'm a complete idiot.
Falun Gong is a cult, straight up.
Okay, you're saying they're a cult based on what? Do you think Judaism is a cult? Christianity? Buddhism? Islam? We've got 4 minutes left. You better start showing some receipts, because if there's no receipts, then you just slandered millions of people.
It is led by a megalomaniac fraud known as Master Li Hongzhi, who claims to be an interdimensional being with supernatural powers.
Yeah, I tried to fact check this. The only primary source I could find was this website, which appears to be run by Falun Gong itself. It says Li Hongzhi isn't worshipped. They do refer to him as a master, but that's normal for a religious leader. Anyone who's watched a kung fu movie knows that the martial arts teacher is always referred to as master. This is a Falun Gong source though, so could it be lying? I find that doubtful for several reasons. First, if Falun Gong views Li Hongzhi as divine, then wouldn't it be heretical to say otherwise on a public website where members could visit? Secondly, Falun Gong worship takes place outside in the view of the public. They're not gathering in closed off churches where there's secret stuff being planned. Finally, it's well reported that Li Hongzhi doesn't make public appearances. He doesn't personally lead religious services. He is rarely seen or interviewed. What good is being the leader of a cult if your members don't see or hear you?
The basic gist is that Master Li put some magical force inside of your tummy, which is known as the Fallen. And the Fallen lets you harness all of the world's positive energy, which is known as Gong. Properly harnessing this energy, in turn, requires doing a lot of repetitive, mind-numbing meditation exercises, as spelled out in the Master's various books and videos and multi-day seminars.
In other words, it's not a religion focused on a set of supernatural events that occurred in the past. It's about meditation and ethics that lead to self-improvement. This guy acts like meditation is just made up. Yet meditation carries real, genuine benefits. Don't take my word for it though. This time I have the receipts. I'm the one with the academic study. This is an academic study on the health wellness effects of Falun Gong. Findings revealed that Falun Gong respondents are more likely to report excellent health, little or no use of medicine, and less medical and health expenses than their friends and family. How do you like them apples? Also, the study itself has its own 7 pages of receipts. Now let's compare that to you, who hasn't shown a single receipt.
But it's all worth it, because Master Li says that those who prove their allegiance to Falun Dafa will eventually achieve superhuman levels of happiness, success, and health, just like him.
Yeah, it's called virtue ethics, and science does show that it leads to human happiness. This isn't a cult religious belief. Jonathan Haidt makes an entirely secular case for virtue ethics as a path to happiness in his first published book. The problem of human happiness is the hedonic treadmill. We love making money, getting likes on social media, consuming food, drugs, or alcohol. These things can only satisfy us temporarily though, and sometimes they're out of our control. One moment we might be getting rich or getting lots of attention on social media. The next minute we're being fired and no one cares. Virtue is rewarding because it allows people to derive happiness out of their own individual character. Happiness becomes linked to the decisions that people make. That's a good thing because people always have 100% control over their own decisions. When this is part of a religion like Christianity or Falun Gong, virtue ethics is supercharged. Not only do you have a source of happiness in your life, you also have a community of virtuous people backing you up. But given all the toys and Pokemon stuff in this guy's background, I'm guessing this goes right over his head. Also, let me make one thing clear. Falun Gong is a religion. They believe in karma and reincarnation. It's an offshoot of Buddhism. It's not an entirely secular philosophy. It is grounded in real wisdom about human happiness, though. Its supernatural beliefs are also rooted in the Buddhist religion.
Now let us talk about how Falun Gong propaganda works. This requires a bit of understanding of Master Li's general view of the world, which goes something like this. The Chinese government is the single most evil thing in the entire world because it oppresses Master Li's religion and forced him into exile in America. But the Chinese government is also evil because it is communist.
Did you just mock refugees? Because that seems like what you were doing. It seems like you were mocking refugees. Falun Gong members have been executed by the Chinese government. They've been put in concentration camps for their religious beliefs. I don't think you should mock them. Yeah, and it was communism that allowed the CCP to persecute these people. That wouldn't have happened in America. Well, maybe it would happen now in America, but that's because people like you want to turn America into China.
And the very idea of a Chinese communist is deeply offensive to Master Li's ultra-xenophobic sensibilities.
Really? Xenophobic? Are you serious? He's Chinese! This is unreal. Okay, let's break it down. The guy was born in China. He fled to the US because the communists were persecuting his religion. Now you're gonna tell me because he opposes communism, he's somehow xenophobic? Are you kidding me? Wow. I guess SJWs really do believe that everything is racist. Unbelievable.
You see, Master Lee believes that every race was created by a different god, and therefore all of the different races of the world should stay separate and never mingle or cross-contaminate with each other. He is quite infamously opposed to mixed race people, who he considers to be spiritually defective.
Did he just show a receipt? Let's back that one up. So he pulls up this source, then he purports to blow up a supposed racist quote from it. I do this all the time when I make videos, except that when I do it, the quote actually appears in the article on the screen. Nowhere in this transcript of the lecture he supposedly gave does these words appear. If you read what does appear on the screen, it's clearly not discussing interracial marriage at all. According to the aforementioned Falun Gong website, all races can join the movement and intermarry. Now again, this website is a Falun Gong source. I'd say it's still a better source though than the transcript of a lecture that didn't even contain the quotation this guy blew up on the screen. Chances are you've seen this guy in YouTube advertisements. He's probably the most recognizable person who works for the Epoch Times. His name is Roman Balmakov. He's a white American of Slavic descent. He also happens to be married to a Chinese woman. And you know what? They're both Falun Gong members.
And in the next life, all of the different races will each live on their own planet, and we'll all be a lot happier. Okay, so where Falun Gong propaganda seems to be enjoying a great deal of success these days is in right-wing America. This is because their anti-communist, anti-China messaging syncs up quite well with what a lot of conservatives already believe, which is that communism is wicked and that the Chinese government is a force for bad in the world, which are both perfectly fine things to believe. I believe those things.
Okay, then why are you calling for the censorship of these people? Why are you mocking their religious beliefs? Now you're calling them xenophobic racists, even though they're not. In terms of authoritarianism and intolerance, I don't see any difference between people like you and the communists.
The problem is that the Falun Gong does not believe that China's communist government is bad because of an objective analysis of their policies. No, they believe it is bad because they think it is literally run by demonic spirits who are the primary embodiment of evil in this world.
Again, where's the receipt for this? You don't have one. You just hate these people because of Trump derangement syndrome. Let me blow your mind here. Maybe Falun Gong hates the communists because it put them in prison. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that commies killed their people and harvested their organs. Just putting that out there as a possibility.
And since they believe this as a matter of religious principle, this means that their standards of evidence are not particularly high.
Ironic coming from you. Epoch Times won an award for best documentary. I don't see any awards behind you, just a bunch of toys and Pokemon pictures.
This is very much the problem that has started to draw increasing negative attention to the leading news outlet of the Falun Gong movement, the Epoch Times. You see, some time ago, Master Lee apparently concluded that Donald Trump is a divine agent of heaven sent to us to destroy the Chinese communists.
There are things that Falun Gong shares in common with both Trump and the right. Trump's slogan was "Make America Great Again." That slogan signals a desire to return to a traditional American culture. Christianity and Falun Gong also both emphasize the importance of virtue in the character of its followers. Trump also explicitly targeted China as an adversary. His approach is the complete opposite of Joe Biden, who views China as a close ally. So no, it wasn't irrational beliefs that led Falun Gong to support Trump. It was deeply held principles and ethics, tradition, and the opposition to the tyranny of the CCP.
So part of their spiritual belief,
yes,
and it is a sort of spiritual practice, right? Spiritual group, is that Donald Trump is like a key figure in delivering the final judgment and victory over Chinese communism that they so anxiously wait for.
That is 100% correct.
And what this particular prophecy means is that anyone who opposes President Trump and his divine mandate must surely be an agent of evil in some way.
Are you joking me? That's your receipt? For real? Your receipt is an unverified statement. That's the same guy who was with Glasses Woman earlier. They're literally on Chris Hayes' crazy conspiracy theory show. We're talking Chris Hayes here, the left-wing Alex Jones. Except Alex Jones often gets proven right, while Chris Hayes is wrong 100% of the time. Really, this is your receipt. What a joke. I've been on Sargon's actual website. Whether Whether you like him or not, he puts all the receipts on there. Kristi Winters, you should be ashamed of this video. Total disgrace.
And this opens the door to basically any lunatic pro-Trump conspiracy theory you can imagine. Here is the big problem that I have with all of this. As I said in the beginning of the video, it is perfectly valid to be concerned about the growing geopolitical power of China. Personally, I think that this issue has the potential to define global politics for a generation or more in the same way that the power of the Soviet Union did during the Cold War. But if those of us concerned with the rise of China allow a leadership role to be played in this conflict by a loopy cult with little respect for the truth, then we are ultimately just shooting ourselves in the foot.
So you'd rather the US just surrender to China? Eric Swalwell banged that spy. He didn't get investigated by the FBI. He's still on all of those intelligence committees. In fact, he is playing a key role in the second waste of time impeachment trial. Yet the FBI and DOJ is spending millions of dollars trying to throw this lady in prison. What a joke. The corruption is so bad that it's openly reported in the media that China is directly paying Hunter Biden to just tell his demented father to do whatever China wants. Yet you're saying we should focus our attention on Falun Gong. They're the ones that need to be silenced here. The left has no credibility pretending like they care about the threat posed by China. You guys are more concerned with purging the military of Trump supporters than preventing a military conflict that we're going to lose.
We cannot allow the anti-China position to be defined by liars and crackpots and religious fanatics, which is of course exactly what the Chinese government often dismisses its critics as being. The most important lessons of the Cold War is that the enemy of my enemy cannot always be my friend. If we want to triumph in a battle of ideas, it is vitally important that those who profess to be on the side of what is morally right and just are able to maintain that integrity. And as long as Falun Gong remains an ally of the West, that task becomes a lot harder than it should be.
Why? On what basis do you call out the moral integrity of Falun Gong? You don't have a moral argument to stand on. As a leftist atheist, you have nothing to add to the conversation. I mean, what are you gonna say? You don't believe in reincarnation and karma? They're not supported by science? Sorry, but science isn't a substitute for religion. It never will be. That's because science is a method used by humans. Any limitation humans have also affects science. Kristi, you believe in science, right? You're not one of those dirty science deniers, are you? So if the theory of evolution is real, we wouldn't really see the world how it really is, right? We'd see the world in a way that best promotes our survival and reproduction. Like if you were really hungry and you ate a pizza, it would probably taste really good. But if you had just eaten a pizza and then you start eating a second pizza, it would probably taste disgusting. Anything that is irrelevant or a distraction from our survival gets filtered out. Since all science is based on human perceptions of the world, wouldn't that mean that much of science is deeply flawed then? At the end of the day, these people founded a religion that helps people. I showed the receipts with that academic study. These people stood up to one of the most totalitarian governments in world history. For you to smear them as a cult to pwn Sargon is absolutely pathetic. It's pathetic you're still desperately trying to win Gamergate 5 years after the fact. You guys lost. Get over it. I think it's been, 5 years since Sargon debated Kristi Winters? How many Sargon videos have you published? People give me a hard time for doing so many Vosh videos. Yeah, those videos often get the most views on my channel. It's telling that only a small fraction of your subscribers actually went to watch this POS. I can understand why. 0 receipts, 0 credibility. I'm gonna be generous with today's shout out. First, consider getting news from the Epoch Times. A lot of people believe their website is paywalled. Fake news. If you create an account which only requires giving them your email, you can still read 90% of the articles for free. I personally like Epoch Times better than either Newsmax or OAN. I've never felt that any of their news coverage was ever conspiratorial or unreliable. Secondly, don't watch Sargon on YouTube. Go to his actual website. He's got the receipts on there for all of his podcasts. Finally, please support small YouTube channels like mine by subscribing. Also, you should create a Gab account. Follow me on Gab Social and subscribe to me on Gab TV. I've got exclusive videos over there and it's only a matter of time till I get banned off YouTube. Thanks for supporting this channel.